David Linden.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I say, on this occasion of St Andrews Day, what a pleasure it is to serve under the chairmanship of a daughter of Eldersley. I want to start by commending my honourable friend from East Kilbride, Strathen and Les Mahago. And it's a real pleasure, actually, to follow the honourable lady, the member for North Ayrshire and Arran. I'm beginning to get quite disappointed. I don't have three communities in my constituency name. But nonetheless, I do welcome the opportunity to take part in this debate and to sum up on behalf of the Scottish National Party. Today's debate is on a very serious and important issue, and I think it's important that we address this for a multitude of reasons, but primarily due to the prevalence of poor mental health in those living with autism. Around 1 in 4 people across the UK have a mental health problem, but for autistic people that figure is almost 4 out of every 5. And I think the honourable member for Bladen touched on this, but the autism research charity Autistica reports that up to 2/3 of autistic adults have thought about committing suicide, and quite shockingly 35% have attempted suicide, and I think that is an utterly concerning figure. Although only around 1% of people in the UK are autistic, up to 15% of people hospitalised after attempting suicide have a diagnosis of autism, and these are very sobering statistics. And it's exactly why it's crucial that this issue is out in the open. I'm very glad that we've managed to bring this to the floor of the House today. Despite all of this, there isn't much research to indicate why the disparity exists, and I'll come back to that point in a moment. I think that's why the research projects commissioned by Autistica are to be commended, namely the ongoing work with Nottingham University, looking to understand suicide and autism. And while we await the findings of this research, we must continue to do all that we can. Given that people with autism are more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health condition, early diagnosis and support is vital. Delays in diagnosis can hinder the implementation of effective support and intervention strategies. Members from other nations in the UK will no doubt be aware and have indeed highlighted how and where these are, but I would like to say a few words from the context of a Scottish perspective. I'm not going to repeat what my honourable friends from East Kilbride, Strathen, Les Mahago and North Ayrshire and Arran have said about the autism strategy for reasons of time. But the Scottish Government does acknowledge that there is more that we can do to improve waiting times, and this is something that is working towards part of the strategy that was outlined by my honourable friend from North Ayrshire and Arran. Surveys have shown that a positive diagnostic experience is associated with lower levels of stress and more effective coping strategies. Shorter waiting times for diagnosis can not only be cut down at a time that autistic people may be feeling misunderstood and isolated, but allow for proper support to be given. I think that's very important. In addition to working towards faster diagnosis, the Scottish Government is also investing record sums into mental health, and I think the point the honourable lady from Liverpool Wavertree, I know she has an interest in this, she's not in her place, but I would commend what she's done in mental health. But this financial year, investment in mental health for Scotland's NHS will exceed £1 billion for the first time. This represents a huge increase from the £650 million in 2006 to 2007, and I think that underlines the greater seriousness with which mental health in general is now being treated, and I very much welcome that. I know, being the son-in-law of someone who works in a medical practice, or has just recently retired from a medical practice in Stornoway, that my mother-in-law would often say that probably about half of the people that come through the door would be coming through with mental health issues, but that's not necessarily how the funding has always been distributed in recent years. More than happy to give way to the honourable gentleman from Caithness, Sutherland and Mr Ross.
Honourable Member for giving way. I would actually praise the SNP government for its autism strategy. Through my own working in my constituency, I can see the benefit of that. My only slight point is just the tiniest wee niggle is, would the honourable member agree with me that the good work that's been done by the Scottish Government could perhaps be more widely advertised, because there's still a slight gap between the general public of Scotland understanding the work that's been done, and maybe via the media or some sort of advertising or some sort of media campaign, it would be good to flagship that.
Yes, I'm more than happy to agree with the honourable gentleman on that, and he brings considerable experience to this House. I know that the honourable gentleman was a member of the Scottish Parliament in the last Parliament, just before the last Parliament, so I agree with that, and I think I'm more than happy to put that on the record. The additional funding that I was talking about, that will reach £35 million by 2022 for 800 additional mental health workers in key settings like accident and emergency departments, GP surgeries, custody suites and prisons. And this local provision is crucial in ensuring that those with mental health problems get the help that they need when they need it, because there is still much more to do, but I believe we are moving in the right direction and clearly taking these matters very seriously. But all of these figures and actions might seem like hot air, but there really is, I think, an understanding in this place that we realise there's a real difference between life and death for some people. and it is therefore crucial that we get this right and learn from past mistakes if we are to prevent what are, in essence, preventable deaths. It's clear from that shocking statistic that I quoted earlier, the 35% of autistic people who've attempted suicide, that there is much, much more that can be done. And there is a big challenge here, and if we cannot collectively take responsibility and see that percentage fall, then frankly we are failing all of those that live with autism. Now, just before I wind up, because I'm conscious of time, I want to make sure that my honourable friend does have a significant amount of time to wind up. I want to pay tribute to a few of the organisations doing fantastic work in Scotland. Organisations such as the Autism Network Scotland and the National Autistic Society for Scotland. At this juncture I would very much commend Bob McBean of the National Autistic Society, who was actually a former Labour councillor in my constituency. But Scottish Autism continue to do really fantastic work, not least their work at, on conferences in children's mental health. But at a much more local level, in my own constituency of Glasgow East, local families engaged with PACT for Autism came to visit me at one of my recent surgeries at Parkhead Library. PACT is a friendly parent-carer-led support group that provides support, information and advice to all with a focus on autistic spectrum disorders. This kind of group, and I'm sure all honourable members will have these kind of groups in their constituencies, but these really do provide wonderful support at a very local level, and the impact of this really cannot be underestimated. And there is a point to be made there about the funding for them, which is probably a subject for another day. But something as simple as one of PACT's regular coffee mornings can be a real lifeline for individuals and families in East End of Glasgow, and I very much commend that, and I hope the House will join in me in recognising their work. But we realise that groups like these really do an awful lot to help autistic people and their families to lead happy, healthy lives every single day. And I think in conclusion, I would commend my honourable friend, but I think we need to resolve in this place to make sure that we do everything to ensure that people who are on the autistic spectrum can lead healthy, happy lives every day. And with that, I wish everybody a happy St Andrew's Day.